Testing. I'm a little loud, so I gave them a heads up before we started here. I get a little excited, but there's a lot to be excited about today. First and foremost, I just want to pay some respects with it being 9/11 to remember those ones who sacrificed and lost their lives in 9/11, to all the first responders out there, and most importantly to our brave people who serve this amazing country of the United States of America, the best place to live in the entire world, and a place where many of you guys come to be entrepreneurs and live that American dream. So we're blessed to be all be here today. So thank you. So first off, thank you everyone for coming here, and thank you everyone to Startup Boston for putting on a great event. We appreciate you all being here, both in person and online. I think this is one of my first times ever moderating a panel where we have this hybrid, but I gotta say, you guys did an amazing job setting it up. So today we'll explore the genuine experience of startup founders beyond the highlights, diving into their inspirations, sacrifices, challenges, and successes. Prepare for an authentic look into the core of entrepreneurship and the journey of what life is like as a startup founder. I'm your moderator today, Kyle Cruz, and like many of you, I yearn to know all about what it's like to be a founder and an entrepreneur, and just to know what it takes to really put yourself last, right? And try to achieve something that might impact this world in a very special and unique way. So before we introduce our panelists here today, I'm just curious, how many of you in this room today are founders of companies? That's fantastic. I pretty much expected that. And how many of you are first-time founders? Awesome. So there's a lot of hands that are being raised right now, and I think that's really exciting because some of the insights and the stories that you'll hear today will be incredibly beneficial and valuable to you as you prepare and embark on your journey as being a startup founder. So let's meet our panel. I'll start virtually because I don't want them to feel left out here. All right, Wendy Sloan, CEO and co-founder of B-Tech, where she's reducing the number of chronic non-healing wounds. Wendy, thank you for joining us. Then we have Reginald Swift. We're going to call him Reggie today. It's, of course, his name anyways, but it's a great name. CEO and co-founder of Rubix LS, specializing in data science R&D to boost patient diversity in clinical studies. We also have Manisha Sethi, CEO and founder of Who's Cooking, a community marketplace connecting diners to home cooks offering authentic homemade meals. And here in person, we'll start far left. We have Scott Barnett, co-founder of MeetAway, the industry-leading platform for one-on-one virtual networking events. And of course, Ryan Myers, CEO and co-founder of CranioSense, a medical technology that measures intracranial pressure. Now, I polled the audience, right? And I asked all of you who here are founders, and especially who here are first-time founders. And, you know, I'm just curious, on our panel today, I don't know if I really asked this question when I was getting to know all of you, but curious, which ones are you? Which of you are first-time founders here? Okay, how about anyone virtually? Manisha, Reggie, Wendy? Any of you first-time founders? No, okay, so we got some experience in the room. That's fantastic. Well, to get things started, I actually want to start with a question for Manisha. You know, Manisha, I'm assuming you can hear us loud and clear over there?
Thank you, I can.
Awesome, maybe we can pump up her volume a little bit. But Manisha, you know, you've spent an impressive 21 years at Fidelity, you know, and decided to leave and start working full-time on Who's Cooking. You know, and that kind of seems a little bit maybe unrelatable, right? So please tell us, you know, what that personal experience is and what realization did you have that led you to leaving a long-time career to start, you know, a startup company focused on technology and cooking?
Yeah, thank you. Am I audible? the voice is good? The quality, yes, great. So thanks, Kyle. It's not for the weak of heart, definitely, or the faint of heart. It took a lot of courage from my part. Fidelity was a great position to have. It was very stable. But I had an opportunity, and that opportunity was to follow my passion, my North Star. And this is something that I was thinking of for many, many years. And I think for me, the one thing that was the key in trying to start this was that my family had some financial stability that allowed me this avenue to focus on building this. I think passion is the key to starting any company because we launched last year. This is our second year of doing this. And had I not been as passionate as I am, I would have dropped this a while back. I would not be able to continue on my path. But I'm steadfast in my belief. I mean, I think Stephanie said it right when she gave the intro video to Startup Boston, the audacity, dare to defy the odds. I'm here to defy the odds. I'd like to build a company that really focuses on democratizing the culinary industry to make it easier for countless people to come and enter this industry without having to worry about headaches of sales and marketing and logistics and payment processing and so forth. My inspiration, I have to say, is my own mother. She was in this industry for a while without the help of people or technology and not really knowing much. So that's who keeps me going.
Thank you, Manisha. And it's interesting because it sounds like though you might have had though an experience, growing up throughout your life that made you so passionate. Maybe you could really hone in on what exactly that might have been.
Yeah. So I have my education is actually I have an undergrad in computer science and a master's in telecom engineering. So you're right in saying it's completely separate, but I wanted to use my technology industry knowledge with my food industry knowledge. My family had restaurants in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is where I grew up. So I had an in-depth understanding by just way of working through the family business to understand how hard it is for small businesses to truly succeed. And that that knowledge of just growing up and being present with the family business and having worked in the technology industry brought together a software platform. So Who's Cooking is a software platform. It allows independent culinary entrepreneurs to put up their menus within minutes, to get help with CRM tools such as HubSpot, which we're fully integrated with, to get payments processed through many types of payment authorization gateways, to get food delivered to consumers and to corporate workspaces. So we do that through tech, and my knowledge of working at Fidelity really enabled me to be able to build a tech stack that could offer this.
Yeah, and I think that's super common. I mean, I know probably many of you here today probably had some sort of event occur in your life. You had this realization, and you probably may have had a little bit of background in a certain area that complements what you're doing today. So, Manisha, it was great how you tie that all together. And, Ryan, I saw you raise your hand as a, first-time startup founder. What personal experience was it for you? What was that realization where you wanted to take the leap?
Sure. Can you guys? Where can I sit? How close do I need to be?
You might need to get a little close.
Right.
I noticed I got to get kind of.
All right.
There we go.
We'll do this. Good. So yeah, a little bit different. So I fall into this fun little bucket called technical founder, technical CEO, which means that my training is significantly more technical, I think, than most CEOs. So I have a PhD in bioengineering out of Northeastern. Go Huskies! Sorry, Suffolk. Yeah, that was a wrong plug.
Good luck walking out of here.
I know.
We'll get you an escort.
I came out of a neurophysiology lab and really wanted to see my research, the reason that I got my PhD, translate into saving people's lives, medical care, making people more comfortable getting care where they need it. And so went to a company where I was able to build a really great portfolio of neurotech with my co-founder of CranioSense. And every time we went out to go talk to patients or go talk to doctors, everybody would ask about this one tech that we were developing. And it was really just listening to, I know everybody's not going to have this luxury, but listening to the need to democratize. And I love that Manisha brought up democratization of things. Democratize specialized care so that everybody across the country can get it, whether you're in the middle of the city or you're in rural America, whether you're whatever color you might be, whatever socioeconomic background you come from. It's really difficult right now to get neurological care when you need it. And it was really the patients that were affected by traumatic brain injury that when that happens, it can happen anywhere, any place, anytime to anyone. You need that care immediately. And those stories, listening to those customers, right, those patients, it wasn't that we wanted to go and spend every waking hour worrying about, bringing this to market. It was that we needed to. And that was just, I hope I echo my co-founder who's in the back corner when I say that it was a need. It wasn't necessarily let's go see what this is like. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's, I think, nothing more powerful and impactful than, seeing people live a certain way or suffer a certain way. And I can see how motivating that would be to maybe, like I was saying earlier, you're going to become a founder and make some serious sacrifices throughout your life and spend a lot of hours awake and grinding away, though, to help improve other lives. So, it makes a lot of sense. Let's get back to our virtual attendees here. And Wendy, when we were prepping for today, Wendy actually had this really interesting, she said this thing. She goes, I try to be intentionally unintentional. And so I chuckled. And Wendy, I want you to tell everyone here today kind of what does that mean? And give us an example of how you were intentionally unintentional and how it helped you as a founder.
Thanks for asking that question, Kyle. And I also have to thank the other panelists real quick for what they have been saying so far about democratizing health in this life science space. But I started out unintentionally because of love of a parent. My mom was a diabetic, and I saw her suffer through 2 diabetic foot ulcers that ultimately lost her both limbs within 3 years. And I began to intentionally, at that point in time, decide that there was something that I can do. And I started with one of my strengths, which was to just do some research on what could I do to maybe create something in a space that could help to address not only my mom's suffering that she had to go through, but others. And I think the intentional part of it is like what Ryan was saying, is that you have to love and have a passion for what you're doing. And when I got started unintentionally with BTech, the unintentional part led me to the intentionality of the fact that I needed to build out not just a product, but a business around a product. And so that's how my 2 worlds of unintentional and intentional desire to create a product and develop a business collided.
Wendy, that's fantastic. And it's interesting, right? Because I feel like there's something about all of us as founders, or all of you. I'm just maybe an aspiring one, but, it seems like all of you, getting to know you, and I'm sure many of you in this room today all have a really unique kind of, interesting way about them that makes you a unique type of founder. And I'm just curious, Scott, what would you say, I guess, and anyone else really on this panel, I'd love for you to chime in, but I'm just curious, what other unique ways do you think, Scott, we can start with you, but what other unique ways about you kind of, might showcase your you being a founder in a certain way and be valuable for other founders out there to maybe think about and consider, what makes them unique,
Good question.
You're special.
So I think a lot of it is understanding where you fit within a team and making sure that you've brought people that complement you. Most of the time people talk about that as a skill set. For me and my co-founder, we found it's the way that we approach problems as much as anything else. So we joke that her job is to run through walls, mine is to run around them. Some walls are made of steel. Those are a lot easier to go around. Some walls are made of cardboard and super wide, a lot easier to go through. But to just be cognizant of that, I like to kind of think and plan ahead, and that's just my natural persona. And so being aware of that, finding that right balance of it. I don't know, curious what you guys on the panel, what your take is as well. I think maybe one of the things that served us really well is making sure that we're listening to customers, but not taking what they say as gospel. Kind of the way I've heard it phrased is that they tell you their problem in the form of a solution. They tell you your product should have X. What they're really telling you is they've got a problem, and your job as the entrepreneur is to figure out what's the best solution for that. But I think that's true across every customer group that you have, whether it's investors or employees or whatnot. And so just thinking a little bit more deeply about those things and taking ownership of it, not just letting the words that they've said act as if, that's the gospel. So.
Yeah, certainly a unique mindset. And, Reggie, you've been at it for 8 years with Rubik's LS. So, I'm curious, in those 8 years, can you recall a moment of profound self-doubt or a setback that really shook you as a founder, and kind of how you might have reacted to that problem, right? Especially when you don't expect it.
No, I definitely appreciate that, Kyle. And I'll tell you this, the problems never go away when you're a founder. It just gets different. It evolves, right? And it changes, right? So as you scale the movement from actual founder to CEO, there's a whole other skill set of problems that you also have to be able to manage as well. So early on in kind of the germination of the company, we've had, I've had setbacks for and I think one of your questions will allude to, minority founders, right? Funding, being able to gain access of information, being able to gain access of opportunities, most of which will be closed off. And, just kind of seeing where fitting in with the right team and actually where is our path to get, do we go for actual traditional funding? Do we go for alternate funding? Do we go for what can be out there? And one of the biggest things is that we've got our first go around. We went to VCs and angels, and they all said no. Health equity isn't investable. Actually, that was some of the words that were said at the time. Of course, that was 7-8 years ago. That tone has changed since then. But then it goes to show that everybody is taking the gauge of the market to say, hey, this is where we're going. But for me, as I was hearing the realities of kind of these markers, right, of what was happening, I decided to kind of just forge on my own. I know Scott was saying, some of those walls are made with steel. Well, I had to go rush through that steel wall too. And sure, I got the bruises to show for it, but we went after untraditional funding, and then we got successful after that. So it took us 3-4 years just to kind of crunch that in, and really, it as a minority founder itself, your pathway is 2 times or 3 times as longer for success than any other traditional pathway. So that's one of the biggest realizations to have. Right. And just realizing kind of what we've been able to do. And all I did was started with $400. And here I am today. So 8 years later, and here I am. So I'm, hopefully I'm crushing more cardboard boxes, cardboard walls than steel and gravel.
Well, one of the other things I'd like to add to what you're saying is we've found that a lot of the problems we run into again and again until we've actually solved the problem. And it's easy to okay, we kind of have solved it for today, but then, a year later, it's a much bigger, deeper problem of the same genre. And so the more we can just get to the root of things, if you don't have an engineering, background, if your co-founder isn't that, go find a real solution for that. Some Upworker isn't going to be the solution, right? See that as a lot of first-time entrepreneurs out there. But whatever those challenges are, they have a tendency to get bigger and deeper, and it's within that same vein. And so sometimes you just got to suck it up and say, okay, I'm going to learn, whatever it is. If it's like, we're great at sales, but horrible at marketing, it's like, okay, I'm the founder. I got to go learn marketing, and I can't take a class on a day to figure that out. I'm going to have to go spend 3 months to figure out what is this thing, or spend X dollars to, hire someone else so I can delegate. But that's been a lot of our challenges over time, is that you just keep hitting the same thing until you've actually solved that problem.
Yeah, and I'll just I'm not going to harp on the fact that there's always walls you're going to have to get through. I don't want to be that person, but it's like just listening to you two and then bringing in my experience. Adaptability and introspection, I think, are two things that have to go hand in hand in any founder. I don't want to say never, but like, because I hope somebody in here will have just like the easiest time doing a startup. But like, there's just going to be struggles, and they may be huge and they may be small. Like, my co-founder and I are dealing with, we're trying to get a Mass Life Sciences tax, investor credit thing, and there's things that pop up in there that we've never dealt with. We're not CPAs, right? And so we have to go figure it out. And there's some things that you can figure out, right? That's the introspection. Like, there's some things that you as a founder can do, and you have to have the hard work and dedication and the ability to work on zero sleep and all caffeine, right? To just go do. But there are also things that to your point, that you need to introspective say, I can't raise this because it's not always your fault, right? I can't do this. I need to either find somebody that can or do it a different way. Like, you have to be adaptable, right? And so the problems will come, they'll be different. Listen to other people's problems, listen to how they overcame them, but just know that just sometimes you have to take a step back and just look internally and just be like, what is the problem? How can I as a founder solve this? That doesn't mean that you have to solve it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Can I just chime in and add to what everybody is saying? I think you also have to learn how to be your own internal champion and not wait for somebody externally to champion you. Because if you're waiting for somebody externally to champion you, you may as well hang up your shingle. So if you don't have that basic core foundation belief in what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what it's going to take for you to do it, then you're already behind the 8 ball. So, for me, honing and learning how to best be my best, brightest, fastest, swiftest champion has helped me tremendously.
And I'll just back you up on that, Wendy, because that is so true. There is so much negativity that we will hear so many no's, and it really gets you down. And unless you have that perseverance somewhere deep inside of you, as a first-time founder, you want to quit all the time. But there has to be that internal voice that keeps saying, go, 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 you can do this. At the same time, the only other thing that I'd add is I have found people to talk to, whether you call them advisors or peers, that really cheer me on and keep me going. And it's important to surround yourself and understand how to surround yourself with positivity in the face of a lot of negativity that you're going to be facing. They're going to help.
Yeah, I just want to echo.
One last thing, one other quick thing. One of the things that I do is just a little trick to myself is in my bedroom, literally, I have my business logo, my product logo. So every time I wake up in the morning, the first thing I see is those, so that it's always before me, and it keeps it before me. And it might sound corny, but on those days when I feel like a little like, oh, this ain't going nowhere, I'm done, I'm ready, I want to wrap it up. I see that and I said, no, I cannot wrap it up. And then I remind myself of why I'm doing it.
One of the little tactics I use, similar to that, but I set a tripwire for myself. For every month, look back. If 10 days of the last month were really tough on me, then I give myself time to think about it. Otherwise, I'm not allowed the time to feel frustrated, whatever else, just got to plow through. But I do find that setting those tripwires gives me the ability to push off things that I don't need to be getting distracted with, but to also make sure that I do spend the time on them when they're actually needed. So I share that as a tool in case that's useful for people.
Yeah, and the last thing that I'll add to is because you've mentioned a co-founder that complements you well, and I know, Manisha, you talked about surrounding yourself with other people. You won't go through this alone. Like, you may think that you're a founder and it's you. You won't, and you shouldn't go through this alone, right? So bring those people with you. It can be a good co-founder. My co-founder is like the perfect complement to me in terms of the smashing through first going around, and various other kind of experiences and just comfort levels with certain tasks. But then my wife is totally on board with this. She probably won't say that. We also have a 7. We have an 8-week-old too, by the way. So we shouldn't bring like totally on board. Maybe is the wrong stamp when she's not here. But she is a champion that I turn to. She's definitely a support system. We talked about this going in. It wasn't me committing to this without, that support system around me. And if you can find that, right, that helps you kind of push through sometimes. Like you'll have to do, I don't know, like 80% of the pushing yourself, like in terms of like getting over things and the no's. And, but having that around you when you have the 10 days, it helps a lot.
Yeah, that's great, everyone. And what started as really a question about a profound, moment of self-doubt. It's just really interesting to hear, though, Reggie, with his back against the wall from a funding standpoint, but continuing to persevere. And I know there was a session right before this on, venture capital. So I'm sure plenty of you already got some great tips and insights there on what to do and how to handle it. But, at the end of the day, you need money. It takes money, right, to make money. So, it's definitely, it's a real challenge, So I think all of you shared some really great points. And, I do have a question for Scott. And before I ask a question, I kind of want to turn back to the audience here. But I guess, how many of you founders here in the audience, and this is probably I would imagine all of you are going to raise your hands, but how many of you find yourselves working around the clock right now, like 24/7, making massive sacrifices, right? A show of hands. Let's see them. Put them up. That's right. All right. So not as many as I actually thought, which is great. Good for you guys, because you need to have a balance in life, and you don't want to drive yourself insane here and burn yourself out. But Scott and I were talking before this. And Scott, you mentioned that you've experienced periods of working around the clock, and it was affecting, your sleep, your eating habits, and which can impact your health, right? And that's the most important thing, right? So, there's sometimes isolation too. That's a big thing, right? You guys touched on, Manisha talked about surrounding yourself with the right people. Ryan, you elaborate on that, but I guess how have you handled that emotional, physical, and mental challenge that arise from some of these unideal work conditions, Scott? Because you've been doing this at all hours sometimes, right?
So a little bit of the context is we have my company. We provide software for virtual networking events. We were doing this pre-COVID. We were B2C, running about 40 events a month ourselves. Took about 5% of our time for the events because we'd automated everything. COVID hits, and all of a sudden we become B2B. And serving everyone that we possibly can. We were hoping to grow 2x that year. Usage of our product grew 100x. And we were self-funded, still chose to be self-funded throughout all of it. Maybe I'd go back and do that different. Our engineering team is based in the Ukraine. We needed to get as much product throughput as possible. So we would work the same hours as our engineers. We work with fantastic people. We pay them well. But what we found is those fantastic people don't want to work American hours when they're on the other side of the world, and they have lots of other options. A lot of companies kind of do the opposite, but we'll do anything for those 10x engineers. So we work their hours. And then we started needing customer support for conferences, for virtual events overnight. So lo and behold, my business partner was getting up at 4 a.m. every morning, and I was for a long time. But then we switched shifts, and she'd go all day until 8 or 10 at night. I'd work most of the day, and then I'd stay up till 4 or 5 in the morning. We'd overlap. We'd be doing chat support for conferences that are running on our software and everything else. And so it'd be great if you could hire up and train someone on all the problems, but for chat support or everything else. But what we found is everything's going so fast that the problems of last week we'd fix with software. So it's a new set of problems every time. So you needed someone founder level that knows what's going on, both to help the customer, but also then as a feedback loop for our business. I think that some of what we did is maybe different than what I would do, but we'd make sure we took a walk every day for about an hour. Oftentimes it'd be to talk work, but just to get out, to go do something a little bit different. We also certainly had the lens that for us, it's every hour we work during COVID, we're going to get 3x, 5x the returns of some other period of time because of our product. So it's like, can we just stack, would I rather work 40 hours a week for a decade or 120 for 1 year, and make the same progress? So really understanding that the opportunity was there. One of the things I really wish we had done is be a little bit smarter about the ways we use a lot of our time. We certainly automate as much, delegate it. I wish with sales calls, I would have just told customers, look, we're doing a group sales call. There's 20 or 50 of you, but no, none of you get one-on-one time anymore. And not to be rude about it, but all of a sudden that would have freed up a ton of time. And so there's a lot of things in retrospective that we kind of have discovered. Some of those we put in place a month later. Some of them we didn't find out till time had passed. But I do think one of the things that was really helpful for us is kind of doing a first principles analysis, and maybe it's a little too buzzwordy, but a little bit of a root cause analysis to figure out how different things function and why they're functioning that way within your organization. So for us with that sales call, why am I doing them one-on-one when we could have done them group? It's like, but same with, customer support. Can you automate it? Can you do other things? Why does it all work the way it does? So many people just kind of copy what their last company did, even though that's not right for their business. So I don't know. Those are some of the things that work for us anyway.
Yeah, Manisha, I'm curious too, your transition from Fidelity into Who's Cooking, what does that look like for you? I mean, you are far removed from a 9-to-5, Monday through Friday type of job. How has that changed at all for you? And do you find yourself spending late nights, sleepless nights, and how do you kind of balance that?
So I would say I was probably forged in the battlefield at Fidelity. It wasn't a 9-to-5 job. It was much longer than that. Actually, when I first started off in 99, 2000, we didn't have a global workforce. And because I was in technology, when code broke or when there was an issue with the server, when there was some issue that was happening, it was me that was online, whether it was 1 a.m. in the morning or 2 a.m. in the morning. And I did that while having 3 children through it. So if I was pregnant, and I still remember like breastfeeding a child and having one hand on the keyboard and still trying to fix an issue. So I was forged there. I think this characteristic of a founder, I have no problem with working hard or long hours. I don't think any of us do. I think we're inherently built for that. I think where I suffer is, again, unlike some others here, I am a solo founder. So I am looking for a co-founder constantly, someone who is as passionate as I am. And I know maybe it won't be at the same match as me, but I think that that's something that I would benefit from. So it's not 9-to-5 there. It wasn't. It was stable. There was a lot of flexibility at Fidelity. I have flexibility here, but when something breaks, I have to fix it. And I am literally one of the only ones that has the capability to fix it. So that's a scary moment at times.
Yeah, it sounds like you're always on 24/7, right? And finding that balance is tough. But I mean, given your background, it sounds like you were built for this, and most founders are. I mean, there's something inside of you as a founder, that's willing to make a number of sacrifices. And Ryan, he alluded to earlier. I mean, you just brought a child into the world. How do you start a family as a founder? Yeah.
How do you start
How do you go about raising a family as a founder? How about that? I mean, because think about it, people out here want to start their lives, right? They want to start, a family. They want to bring life into this world. They want to have a thriving, marriage or whatever it is, right? And when you're making sacrifices 24/7, that's not easy. I mean, what life is like as a startup founder here, So let's be candid on that,
I'll touch on it this way because I think there's just listening to you two speak on this, and then also Wendy about being intentional. My co-founder and I set up, agile, and we can do like fun buzzwords all over the place. But like we are every Monday morning, we sit down, we look at what is a recurring, issues list or bugs or what have you. And we are very intentional about where we put our hard work. Like we're not afraid of the hard work, but I think what's important is to be deliberate about where you're placing it, and things will pop up during the week. There's 5-7 days, right? Sometimes. And like you're going to have to react, but at the same time, just saying we are intentionally taking on these 5 things. Don't overcommit because you can't fit 30 things into a 5-thing week, and just be deliberate about it. And my co-founder and I, maybe we never actually spoke about this, but we are very intentional about the other area where we devote our time in our lives being our family. Like our social lives are our family, or here, like this is somewhat social. There's people in the room, right? Like we're doing social things, but this is what we're doing, right? And we've decided that those are the 2 areas that we want to dedicate our time to. Outside of, taking walks and making sure that you're listening to a call while on your spin bike at home, like, double tasking. You talk about breastfeeding. My son has a hard time in the morning. He sleeps on me and I type with one hand, right? Like that's kind of like a nice bonding time. But yeah, I think it's just being intentional about what you're doing and not letting this whole thing swallow you up. And I think that's how you kind of escape some of the not having time for what you consider to be the important things in your life.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned about meeting, with your co-founder. Yeah. Wendy, please go ahead.
I just wanted to add to what Ryan was saying is that one of the things I realized very early on is that I have control over my schedule and what I do and how I do it. And that's part of the intentionality. And so it may be kids, like in my case, I got a dad who's going through cancer therapy and a brother who needs a heart transplant. So those are real life issues that I have to manage in addition to managing not only my own life and my own health as being a founder and an entrepreneur, but I also got to manage, like everybody was saying, my day-to-day business. So how do I put all that together? So here's the intentionality in it, to add to what everybody's been saying, is I have to have forethought in how I manage my time and what that looks like for me in manageable chunks, so that I don't become overwhelmed, I don't become too tired, and then I get lagging and behind. And so one of my priorities is to always be very responsive to those who are working with me or in community with me and developing my business. And so I have to work in and manage all aspects of my life in that. That's part of the intentionality.
Yeah, and Wendy, thank you for sharing your private life with us. But I mean, again, that's what we're here for, right? Because, everyone is going to experience some real challenges outside of their work. And when you're a founder, balancing both, is going to be tough on you. It's going to be tough on you emotionally, mentally, physically. So those are great points. And, Reggie, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I mean, if you got anything to add,
absolutely.
fire away.
Of course, I wanted to be cognizant of everyone's experience because it's different. And, like as Manisha was saying earlier, and Wendy, I'm also a solo founder. I also have another business as well. So trying to manage, my family life plus 2 businesses, plus like the people in the businesses, it could become overwhelming. And one of the things I really have focused on was militaristic strategy. And one of the things I learned early on, at least from what I've experienced in the past, right? Because it's really about people dependencies. That's how successful businesses actually thrive. It's dependencies on people. So we use kind of a term like lateral design on ensuring that whatever I do is a complement to everyone else's, right? So I don't necessarily have to have a big team. I don't have to necessarily have an international team. I just need to have an effective one, right? So if we can have 3 people that can do 4 things at one time, it's much better than compounded it over 19 people to do 1 thing at a time, right? So I've been able to kind of start honing in and searching for those types of individuals that can help me, rather than say, hey, I need a co-founder, which I know sometimes that could be a challenge in itself, because trying to find a complement of you can already be that path that can lead to kind of craziness, right? So for me, foregoing, finding a co-founder, what I found is that I found complementary team members, 22 of them, to be able to help satisfy specific areas of what we're doing in research. Because what we do is clinical trials. Yes, we use data research, but we also have, 4 people focus on dedicated towards data research. Then we have everyone else that could complement in clinical trials. So that helps us expand and do projects no matter where it is, agnostic of the disease, but be able to be effective. All right. And the reason why I always say this is that the first Marine Corps was 22 people. They got a lot done, and that was early 1800s. So for us, we resonate with that type of mentality today. And of course, there's always the challenge of finding the right people. And you mentioned earlier on your previous question, what was the biggest kind of like challenge point? It's actually finding those right people, right? To be able to be the complement, because you won't know, because you're making those mistakes as you're working through it, right? And you're never going to say, stop, let me see, and what's happening, and that until after the fact. Usually a lot of the bad hires happens after the fact that you realize it was a bad hire, right? I realized that time and time again. And as Scott was saying, you're going to learn these problems over and over and over again until you kind of start putting these things in place. And I learned that luckily pretty early on to prevent that from happening ever again. So it has helped us really now transition away from, looking at those challenge points to say, what, let's translate those challenge points into opportunities. And part of, for me, is that I actually became an amateur boxer, right? So I from the stresses of the day, I'm like, I need to go out and do the speed bag at night. I'm in the gym. My son is there as well, and he's happy to see what's going on. I'm not saying I'm going to be Floyd Mayweather. I'm just here, just saying, I just want to be able to take that energy and put a focus on it, and actually show that I want to be healthy at the same time while doing what I love, right? So that my family can see, hey, we're all going to be healthy too, right? Just picking up healthy habits.
Thank you, Reggie. Yeah, Scott, fire away, man.
I think one lens I'm hearing from you guys is it's kind of, there's a difference between working in your business versus working on it. And really what you need to measure is progress. And it doesn't matter how many hours you're putting in a week. The best entrepreneurs I know can make crazy progress by, make one phone call and all of a sudden all this miraculous stuff happens. And, they've cultivated that network. They know how to, get things done. So that's really what it's about. And to be cognizant of what mistakes you're making. If you're working too much in your business, what's the root cause of that? How do you solve it?
That's fantastic. And guys, I think you guys brought so many, great, real truths and points to being a founder. And I'm just curious, looking back at your journey, and this is going to be more of like maybe a rapid fire question if that's at all possible. But we'll try going right down the line, and we can go ahead and start with Ryan. But looking back at your journey, I guess, what's that personal lesson that you learned from being a founder, and how has it fundamentally changed you, as an individual?
Oh man, that's a big question for rapid fire. Personal change. I'm kind of, maybe this.
Well, maybe you learned something about yourself too as being a founder,
Well, I think maybe there's a common thread maybe with every founder, but like the hard work thing has never actually come hard to me, right? Like that is just something that when I hit a wall, doubling down tends to be my action thereafter, right? It's that no opens like 3 more yeses. I'm just going to figure out a way to get through that. And that becomes, it's kind of like a hydra. When you're starting the company, it's just all action, right? And so if you're not taking a step back, and again, my co-founder really helped me kind of with this in general, was being able to, again, be intentional about what you're doing. And I've now kind of taken that outside. I've always been very spontaneous and reactive and saying yes to things. And sometimes the best answer to something is a no, even though it sounds like it should be a yes. Sometimes it's a no. And so I think just being able to kind of harness myself a little bit and be intentional about what I'm doing, that's really actually helped. It's not always about the hard work. It's about the directed hard work.
I think that's a great point. And Manisha, I just want to go back and forth here. We'll make this virtual now. Manisha, what do you got for us?
Yeah, honestly, I have become a better judge of people. I mean, back to Reggie, what you were saying, I had no idea how to hire. I certainly had no idea how to fire, but I have gone through my gamut of all of that. It takes a lot of courage from telling advisors that they're not functioning well on my portion to telling people that no, that what I wanted or what the expectations were, perhaps they were not clear from my end, but this is not working out. That's something that I will always carry with me. And it's not been an easy path. And then the second thing is, of course, taking all the no's and after a few tears, moving on.
Can I because this brought up one big, because I had to go first.
No, go ahead.
I'm breaking the rules. You're going to run into a lot of different people, right? Do your best to be a good person, and then B, surround yourself with good people. Like, this journey is hard enough. Like, just be good. Like, you don't have to go and try to be like Mr. or Mrs. business person. Like, just be good, right? Like, it sounds kind of juvenile, but like, it's so easy to kind of take a step back and just be like, I'm going to do whatever I want. Just, if somebody needs help and you have like a minute or like a bit of knowledge and you can extend it to them, that will come back to you. Don't do it because of that, but like, this is a community, just help, right? And I think that's, to Manisha's point, that's something that I've learned just getting to know people. You're going to run into some not great people. Don't be one.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So if there's any questions for the panel, we can go ahead and feel free to fire away. Sure. By the way, we got a microphone on its way. Here we go.
Sorry for stealing your time, guys.
My question is about following your initial idea and say, this is, you want to do, this is what you want to do, versus following what the market tells you to do. How do you navigate that?
So the best answer I've heard on it is oftentimes you have your people and the problem that they have, and that you never pivot on those. But the actual innovation that you have that solves that problem for those people, that it makes sense to iterate on. Now, plenty of businesses do it differently. I think Bill Warner's kind of has a talk about it, starting with your heart. For me, I found with every startup I've done, there's an audience I'm targeting and a problem they've got that I really want to fix. And every time I've deviated from that, it hurts me somehow deep down inside. And I end up having to go back to that original thing, even if it doesn't make economic sense, so long as I haven't raised capital or other things where I can't. And so for me, like, that typically works best. But sometimes when the market's demanding something, like, look deep down inside, is that something you're going to want to go build even on those tough days? And if you can't build it on the tough days, you're not going to make it, or the tough weeks or months, or, so.
I want to ask, when did you almost lose it all, and what did you learn?
Oh, let me take this one.
Reggie was waiting for it.
This is a whole other session.
Very good question. So I almost lost it all twice with just this one company, Rubit's. Only because I was definitely so adamant about where I wanted to position, and the second time wasn't as bad. It was just higher level mistakes that I made that I since course corrected, and now that was what 3.5 years ago. But we course corrected and we were able to kind of satisfy our path now moving forward, since most of our customers are government. But the first time, it is devastating. Whenever, because as everybody was mentioning here, as a single founder, it's all on you. You're feeling all the weight of your decisions, of what you've done in the past, of what now led you here to almost fail. Like the first time I was about a week away from closing, and then we got the reprieve, and then everything just started shooting up from there. For me. So what I realized is, I think many people of the panel mentioned this already, was that you take stock, right, of what the activities that you've done led you here. So for me, this is a marathon. Being able to connect with the right people, connect with the right advisors, connect with just the community of folks, because this is already hard enough, especially for minority entrepreneurs. It's almost like astronomical to try to be successful in this space. And for me, what I realized long ago was that it's yes, you're going to run into a lot of people, but it has to be effective measures that you have to put in innately in yourself to say, you know what, this is how I achieve my success. This is how I look at being able to have progress and working on the business rather than in the business, right? So how do I transition away from that? Because that's how I led down that path first, was because I was working so much in the business. I was forgetting a lot of the higher level items that, it costed a lot of time. There was a lot of legal battles before, got all that squared away. But but this is battle scars. This is a battleground. So this is what happens. So hopefully that gives some context here.
Let me dive in, Reginald, and that I'm all in. I mean, I took my retirement, I put it all in my business, and I work my business. I'm not trying to be a one-hit wonder product. So I look at my product, my business as like Coca-Cola. When Pepsi challenged them, they said, we're going to come out strong with Coke Light, Coke Cherry. We're going to build on this one platform. And so, it's how much do you have of your passion that's in it? And then when you got skin in the game, that adds to it. So in order for me to continue to eat and take care of myself in retirement, I got to make sure that I am successful. So it's like Manisha was saying, I got to vet people. Like Reginald saying, I got to vet people. I got to make sure I got the right team. I got to make sure I got the right things. And I got to make sure that I'm adherent to what I believe as a founder in my business, because I'm all in.
Yeah. I'd say the other thing with that doesn't get talked about much. It's scary to be all in, but there's nothing like having, when the ships are burned behind you and you've got no choice, there's nothing like it. So
it's a rush, isn't it?
Yep.
That's awesome, guys. All right. Well, I'd say that'll do it for today. And thank you to everyone again joining us. And thank you to the panel. Fantastic job.